Well, returning to my monologue, he cleared his throat, finally returning his gaze to me. I'm not on the game. There we go. My true reasons for taking you as my companion are... well, they're quite selfish, really, yet at the same time, they may inadvertently benefit many others. Sorry if I sound a bit weird, it's been a few hours. Also, I realized that I do have to do... why do I keep forgetting his name? Randall. I have to get Randall's... I think I have to get... I've already got Heath's special one. But I think I have to also do Randall's, so I will do that. As much as it's going to pay me to... It's not that I find the game boring. This is not... That's not a good way to start it, is it? It's not that I find the game boring, but going through the same scenes over and over and then reading them out in case other people don't want to watch the other route, then yeah, it's a bit tedious, but I will do it because I can't get Markus's special ending without doing those two special endings. This is what I'm saying, where he is clearly like the main guy. You know how there's always one guy who is shown as the lead guy or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like they always seem to be at the forefront of everything. And that is, in my opinion, and clearly the game's own opinion, Markus, which is okay. You know, my favorite is not always the main guy. Because I play a lot of Otome games. So I will do Randall's, even though I feel like he's probably the least favorite, although I have a feeling that a lot of people don't like Heath either, and I don't get it. But anyway, I guess to get the full experience of the story, I should do it anyway, so I will be doing that. But that might mean that Markus's special ending might take a little while longer to come out, because I will be doing a lot of playing this game and a lot of reading of the same thing. And believe it or not, that's a little bit tiring, but I don't remember what I need to get his third ending, which is to side with the Ascari, which is weird to me because he's a Golgotha, but I guess he's not really that tied to his thing. Anyway, tangent over, I will be doing Randall's route. I guess that's what I was trying to say. I seek answers for myself, answers about my own true purpose and that of the world. For every problem I set before you, I too am wondering, searching, turning over stones in both the world and in my heart. So you're learning from me and vice versa. I suppose you might say such a thing, though not in any traditional sense. I see it as more of an awakening, or maybe an exhuming of our true natures. Falling briefly silent, he traced his tongue along one fang, probably deciding how best to phrase what he wanted to say. I see in you the potential for something great, for a life beyond just draining the veins of humankind. That potential might never be realized, but it is there. And such a potential may save not only me, but all of us, yourself included. What kind of potential? I'm afraid I have no answer for that yet. In fact, I may never have it, and it may only come to you. A gentle rumble of thunder, further away now, punctuated Markus's words. Always a flair for the dramatic, even the weather is. I brought up trust because I fear you might mistake me for someone selfless or altruistic. Oh, Markus, honey, I never thought that. I never thought that in a million years. When in reality, I am only acting in my own best interests. I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself, nor about the clownish world that surrounds us. He gazed somberly into my eyes with a wan, resigned smile tugging at his lips. I want to help you, not hinder you. I want to weigh down your spirit with questions and doubts, to awaken that potential, not throw a blanket over its head. That comforting blanket of simple good and evil, of happy endings, a blanket made from your own sheared wool. If that's what you hoped for, I might redirect you to a library of Disney movies or hand you a Sunday school pamphlet instead. Oh, I think it's raining. I have an open mind. He's gonna be like, oh, can you really? I doubt that, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I have an open mind. I can deal with whatever you throw at me. That's dangerous talk, sister, for I have many things to throw. But a curious spirit may have arms big enough to hold them all. Oh, okay, he accepted it. That's actually surprising to me. Usually he's kind of like, ha, I know all of this stuff and you don't, so you are silly kind of vibe. Like, I'm not like trashing him here, I'm really not. But that's just kind of the vibe he gives off. He kind of gives off like a, I know so much more than you vibe. And that's fine because he does. Like, in a way, he definitely does. But also acting as if someone could never learn is a bit pig-headed, maybe? But this wasn't like, he surprised me. He surprised me. Markus's voice was surprisingly gentle, maybe the softest I'd ever heard it. His eyes stayed on mine for several moments more, but eventually they strayed towards the wet asphalt. While we were talking, the rain had gradually slowed to a soft drizzle. A few puddles had formed on the sidewalk, glowing as they reflected the streetlights. Perhaps it's time to leave our sanctuary. With a lengthy sigh, Markus rose to his feet, slipping his sunglasses back on. Then he cleared his throat with an air of finality, as if the subject of my potential was being shelved for now. Though I would never have intentionally timed our encounter to match the storm, I will say it conveniently allowed me to trap you in an enclosed space, subjecting you to my blatherings. Oh my god, I'm not saying that. I'm sorry, I'm not. You're a devious man, Markus. I have a hard time arguing with you there. If I weren't so lazy, I believe I would make a fabulous supervillain. After letting out a loud snicker, Markus shook his head ruefully. In a different universe, I might have dragged you off to my original destination right about now. Sadly, however, it seems the devil's come for his due. At first, I had no idea what Markus was referring to. I assume he's referring to the sun coming up soon. But when I turned around to search the street, I noticed a dark sedan slowly rolling towards us. It wasn't Charisse's car, but it looked very similar, like one of the other cars parked outside the hotel. This is going to be a fun car ride, isn't it? My remark didn't get any response. After a few moments, I glanced back towards Markus, curious about his silence, only to see that he had very conveniently disappeared. Valkii. Oh, hello. I looked back to see a familiar Iscari agent stepping out of the sedan, holding the door open for me. You're Valkii, aren't you? Please get inside. We're heading back to the hotel. I will... I don't know. I'm trying to think of what endings I should get, because right now I could probably go for the Golgotha ending, even though it's not necessary to get his special ending. I just need to get the third ending, which is to side with the Iscari. I will think about it. I might do both, just to show people what happens in both, I guess. Let me have a look at my stats. The Iscari fucking hate me. We're going Golgotha this time, even though, yeah, it doesn't contribute to anything in the end. But I will it will be fast. I'll get the Iscari one after that, because then I can skip through it and then show you just what happens at the end. Is Charisse waiting in there with a paddle? Excuse me? His eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Earlier tonight, we received a report of some dangerous Mavar activity in the area. Another agent, Heath, called to say you were close to the location and you might be in danger while returning to the hotel. Okay. Let me do the car. Let's not rat Markus out. If he wanted to be found, he'd be found, so let's just not say anything. After I crawled into the back seat, the agent nodded to his driver, who set off towards the hotel. Compared to Markus's roller coaster, this ride practically felt like gliding on a cloud. It was a relief that I wasn't heading back to a lecture from Charisse, even though she probably suspected Markus was to blame. As I sank back against the plush leather seat, gazing out at the night sky, several words kept reaching out from my subconscious, circling in my mind. I see in you the potential for something great. That potential might never be realized, but it is there. Even Markus didn't seem to fully understand what he was talking about, though he seemed convinced by it. Whatever misadventures he had planned for us next, maybe some answers would finally start rising to the surface. But I had a feeling they wouldn't really be answers at all. Probably more questions, right? Seems par for the course. After a difficult struggle, I managed to raise my heavy eyelids. The first thing I felt was hunger stirring in my gut, gnawing me awake. I bet I'm gonna go to the beach now. And sort out something. I haven't made up my mind yet. Eventually I rolled out of bed, fighting a sluggish feeling. Tonight I had to take care of that job for Charisse, but I needed to feed first. Whatever, drink from a human. I'm a vampire. I'm less concerned with my humanity in this room. I quickly pulled on my clothes, hurrying outside. Once I left the hotel, I immediately caught the scent of a lone human in the side street nearby. A perfect target. Too absorbed in his thoughts, the man didn't even notice me until I'd bitten him from behind. I drank just enough to sate myself, leaving him standing in a pleasant daze. By the time I returned to the street, Charisse's car was there, patiently waiting for me. This time, the real driver was in the seat. As soon as I closed the door, he took off towards Santa Monica, weaving through the hectic evening traffic. Here, there we go. My mission seemed pretty straightforward, unlike the other night's sewer crawl. Once I found the humans, I'd have to scare or coax them away. By any means necessary, Charisse had said. After we pulled up by the pier, I hopped out of the car and made my way down to the beach, scanning the dunes for any mortals with cameras. Sure enough, I didn't have to search for very long. Marching down the shoreline was a group of young men hauling TV equipment, eagerly shouting and pointing at various innocent beachgoers. Their hungry camera lenses swiveled all around, just like a bunch of Zapruders looking for Kennedys. I don't know what that means. Charisse said Randall's beach house was nearby, so I had to do something before they reached it. After I observed the men for a short while, I decided the best way to deal with them would be, "Oh my god, it's you." Suddenly, a thrilled voice cried out from behind me. I turned to see a young man rushing forward through the sand. An uncomfortably familiar young man. I can't believe it. I thought I'd never see you again. But here you are. Here I am. Just like it's destiny or something. Wow. It was the same mortal I'd fed on my second night. This is not the drone you're looking for. Haha, what? No, I know it's you. You've got this really haunted, distant look in your eyes. Like right now you're looking at me, but you're really not, you know? Oh man, that sounded way better in my head, sorry. This didn't make any sense. Hadn't Charisse said that humans forgot everything leading up to the bite? But this human's scent wasn't like any other I'd smelled. It was oddly sweet, different from the salty sea air or the stench of unwashed mortals nearby. Was he special somehow? Oh, I should probably introduce myself, huh? My name's David. I work with this photo crew, part of the tabloid my dad owns, haha. He gestured towards the group in the distance, looking slightly embarrassed. I convinced them to come out here at night to look for you, actually. Oh, the horrible idea. You're in a lot of danger. Danger? From what? Unless you mean... Oh, don't worry about that. I've always liked people who were dark and mysterious. He averted his eyes bashfully, as if hoping that would hide the pink tint on his cheeks. The other night, I woke up in the dark, and it was so warm I thought I was dead. I didn't know what had happened to me. But then it all flooded back. You were so good to me, the way you took me somewhere safe and covered me up. His voice trembled with awe and adoration. I don't really understand what you are or what you did to me, but after that night I can't stop thinking about you. How amazing it all was. There was a certain dazed dreaminess in his voice and eyes. He looked at me like I was his hero, a rock star or a movie star, someone larger than life. David, go home and forget any of this ever happened. No. No, I don't want to forget it. You don't understand how much you mean to me. Maybe it was love at first sight, or maybe it's something more. I don't care. None of that matters. All I know is that I need to be with you. I need you to take what you want from me again, or else... I don't know, I might go crazy. He was so full of passion, almost too innocent to be real, like a snowflake before it lands on the dirt. I could barely believe it, but he really did seem completely in love with me. Or if not with me, then the sensations I'd given him. I don't know if I should take... I feel so bad rejecting people. What is this? Even a fucking fake person, I'm like, I don't want to... I don't want to reject him, but I also think it makes me feel so awful because it's almost like I hypnotized him in a way. Like, you know, it's not, what he's feeling isn't normal, and there's definitely some kind of trauma behind it as well. There has to be. So I'm going to say, I can't, David. I'm sorry. It's too dangerous for you. Please. I mean, please don't send me away. Pain flickered in his eyes. I can take care of myself, and I promise I'll make everything worth it. Please? Let's just take him. Well, okay, whatever. Yes. I feel like an asshole, but I'm just gonna try and, like, not interact with him that much. I am sure. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. A feverish delight shone on his face. It was almost painfully honest, the way his body was so expressive. He probably couldn't lie even if he wanted to. Then please, tell me what I should call you. Okay, I'm not going with Mistress this time. I did go with Mistress in the first Heath playthrough because I thought it would be funny, but it just kind of, it made me feel really awkward. Just call me Valkii. Valkii, that's your name. I love it. He gave an eager nod, then fell silent, staring at me expectantly. Get rid of that beanie. Sure. He looks older without the beanie, but better. Pulling off the beanie, David quickly stuffed it in his back pocket, ruffling up his flattened hair. Alright, tell your crew to leave and we'll head back together. You got it. I'll let them know I won't be coming around for a while. See, it's just sad. I'm not kidnapping him, but it still feels in the same vein, you know what I mean? Because he's not in his right mind because of what I did to him, right? I watched David as he turned to hurry over towards his hollering group, waving them down. Whatever he told them resulted in a lot of confused looks and grumbling, although I couldn't pick out the words from so far away. But he apparently convinced them to leave because they started to head back the way they came, their camera lights finally blinking out. And so our secret as vampires survived another day. All it took was me taking in a blood pet, which it's so conflicting, you know? Which again, I guess it should be. With David safely in tow, I returned to the hotel. The clerk looked extremely uncomfortable when he noticed my new companion. He informed me that due to health standards, David would have to stay in an adjoining room. David didn't seem ready to leave my side just yet, though, so I let him follow me into the hotel meeting room. Unlike the other night, Charisse was already sitting there. She was on the phone with someone, though, and she held up a finger to keep me quiet. Yes, I'll arrange it. No, it won't be here at the Hollywood Heights. What? No human baggage, thank you. I'm sure he can look after himself for a few days. Yes, no, I really don't. Very well, goodbye. She forcefully clamped down the receiver, letting out a disgruntled sigh. The idiot can't even deal with his own coven, as if my hands aren't full enough right now either. Everyone always needs something without fail. Rising to her feet, Charisse strode over towards me, clearing her throat deliberately. Well, since you're back, Valkii, I'll assume you took care of the problem. Hopefully no future mortals will. She trailed off, her eyes focused sharply on David, practically drilling holes into his skull. He shrunk back behind me, as if hoping I'd serve as a barrier between him and Charisse's death stare. I've taken in a human to feed from, I hope you don't mind. Yes, I can see that. With a heavy, disgruntled sigh, Charisse shook her head, though she seemed more puzzled than annoyed. That's a rather bizarre coincidence. It would seem you found yourself a Strix. She paused, peering at David over her glasses for a few moments before clarifying further. Strixes? That is? The plural are rare mortals with particularly appealing blood. Many of them can retain memories of being fed upon, unlike normal humans, and some of them may even remain conscious during it. But they also tend to have rather extreme reactions to being turned, so please deal with him carefully. I will, no need to worry. Charisse nodded, although judging from the faint curl of her upper lip, she didn't really approve of David to begin with. Just so you're aware, I do not advocate taking live-in blood pets. Unless they're proclaimed dead or have no living relations or friends, they can often result in various issues sprouting up. But for the duration of your employment, I will permit it. Thanks, I appreciate it. Just make sure you handle the logistics. She flicked her hand as if to dismiss the subject, finally shifting her needle-like stare away from David, who let out a quiet exhale of relief. He obviously had no idea what was going on, and I could feel him clutching the back of my jacket, looking for some kind of moral support. As I was saying, I assume he took care of the problem on the beach. It may have seemed like a trivial task, but in the encroaching digital age, hiding our presence from mortals is growing increasingly difficult. Someone is always watching. They actually have, I just realized she has very 90s eyebrows. Like, that was a big thing, like, very thin eyebrows in the 90s and early 2000s, I feel like. Now, your next job involves further diplomacy, and fortunately for you, no sewers. As always, she coasted onto my next duties in her perpetually impatient tone. However, it does involve returning to a place that may be all too familiar. The abattoir, the same club where your sire visited you. Alright, what do I have to do? Charisse raised an eyebrow at me. Was she expecting a stronger reaction? The abattoir sees many rich and powerful clientele, both human and vampire, each looking to fulfill their own depraved desires. I'm sure you know how clubs are. With inhibitions lowered and desires heightened, information is always bound to flow freely. Because the abattoir is neutral ground, just like Heath Spa, all manner of vampires are frequent visitors. Thus, it is very important we learn about anything they might let slip. Yep, sure, why not? Not silently. All I need you to do is convince one of the club's managers, Alicia, to deliver regular reports to us. I heard she was the partner, the blood pet, of a Mavar, so she's already aware of our political situation. I'm sure she and I can come to an agreement. I want to have a look at our stats again, see if me being nice to her gets it up. Did it? I don't think it did. If it did, it was a little bit. I have every faith in your diplomacy skills. However, keep in mind that Alicia, whatever, I'm just going to say Alicia, is a very willful woman. She's highly capable for a mortal and very knowledgeable of our unique abilities. I doubt simple force would be effective, and the last thing we want is for her to end up working against us. Nor do we want her frightened by any peculiar behavior, something to keep in mind, perhaps. Did you say peculiar behavior because I'm a Golgotha? With a deep inhale, Charisse drew herself up slightly, glancing towards the wall clock. It was a not-so-subtle hint that our meeting was about to end. I'd like you to deliver your report within the next few days, Valkii. Until then. Her eyes briefly grazed over David, who I could feel trembling behind me. Do stay out of unnecessary trouble. Okay. Leaving me with those pointed words, she made a swift exit. That's your boss, I guess? David finally managed to break his silence after Charisse left, shuffling out of my protective shadow. She's terrifying. Is it hard to work with her? We get along pretty well, actually. We don't, but it's fine. Really? That's good to hear. I wouldn't want you to be unhappy, Valkii. He gazed at me rapturously. In his eyes, it seemed like I could do no wrong. So, what are you going to do now? David's question made me stop and consider for a moment. Even though my task that night was over, there was still plenty of time until sunrise. Markus's earlier advice resurfaced in my mind. Maybe now was a good time to start scoping out the other vampires in LA. Let's go talk to Markus, I guess? Before I could go out, I had to make sure David was safely deposited in the hotel. He was incredibly reluctant to leave my side, but once I promised I'd see him again before long, he finally agreed to stay in his room. I slipped out of the hotel and into the cool night air. There were a few places I could visit tonight. Let's just visit him. I'm not sure, but can't I go everywhere? It seemed like a good time to pay Markus a visit. He did say I could stop by whenever I wanted to, after all. Oh. Okay, sorry, sometimes I just think of Heath and get sad. Wandering into the shop's depths, I found my way over to the counter. Markus was casually leaning against it with one elbow, flipping through a magazine. There was no way he hadn't noticed me, but he still didn't look up. Evening, Markus. I stopped by to chat. Markus finally lifted his head, giving me a curious look that soon morphed into a smile. Ah, Valkii, I was expecting you tonight. Well, you know I don't like to disappoint. Why? You should disappoint people a little now and then, just to keep them on their toes. He rubbed a thumb along the magazine's cover, chuckling to himself. Well, business is rather slow, as you can see. Is there anything I can do for you? Perhaps a particular topic you wanted to discuss. I have many ears, and all of them are yours in this very moment. As you can tell, I've already asked all of this stuff because this doesn't change whatever route you're on. See, there's a lot, but for the sake of the fact that if you haven't watched the Heeks one, you wouldn't have seen what he's saying, I'm going to do them again. So, why do you wear those sunglasses? They're to make people feel smart when they so cleverly pick up the irony. After all, a simple fashion statement would just be too incongruous with my elusive nature. Next question. Cool story. Have you already forgotten my advice, sister? A smart man doesn't hitch a ride, wheels break down, but the will to keep walking? Never. I thought it was hard to be completely neutral here. Oh, it is indeed, but I am no mere bystander. Marcus clicked his tongue, quirking a brow at me. The truth of the matter is I contribute to every side, and I assist none. Like all supposedly philanthropic causes, they hold no meaning for me. Once upon a time, I pretended to care as most people do, but no longer. His gaze drifted idly away, as if the subject had somehow lost his interest. What made you decide to run a sex shop? My reasoning is rather simple. The more sordid and visceral something is, the more society and its morals label it as taboo, the more it fascinates the repressed masses. Turn on the TV or read the news and see for yourself. Rock and roll, Kennedy's assassination tape, the Manson murders, Dracula, Kurt Cobain, the crucifixion, most famously. He gestured towards the television screen above the counter, its picture silently buzzing with static. Nothing is more tantalizing than the natural instincts we're made to feel guilty for: sex, violence, power. Myself, I find sexuality to be the most interesting and easily exploitable of mankind's desires. Is he wrong? No. He's not. And so I've set up my charming little shop, which serves the dual purpose of providing modest income while also constructing a psychological exhibit for me to study. It's also quite amusing to force the city leaders into visiting me here. Nobody can act truly high and mighty among a sea of phalluses. Fallacy. My god, what a missed opportunity. How old are you exactly? Well, as a man of the past, the present, and the future, that question is a mighty difficult one. Let's just do away with bothersome numbers and say I am however old you believe me to be. 10,000 years old. Why are you always so cryptic? You could just give me a straight answer. Because it is important to spread confusion, not eliminate it. Confusion, after all, is the only thing that makes people think. He gave a short, satisfied nod. What do your Golgotha visions look like? My visions, dearest Valkii, are of potential, of what may be there, of what exists in other realities but is not yet discovered in our own. After all, we merely skim the topmost layer of existence, though on occasion a mind can look past it. He stared off into space for a long pause, collecting his thoughts before continuing. In the grand scheme of time, we've only just discovered the subatomic and the distant skies, and only because these things allowed themselves to be discovered by our eyes. How many other things are invisible to all our senses, to the paltry workings of science? How many things exist beyond our clumsy, self-important ideas of the metaphysical, ghosts and deities bored enough to obsess over our tiny selves? How many things are out there that we just cannot comprehend? In the centuries to come, we'll look back on ourselves like we have, time and time again, and smile at our quaint ideas. Smile at the idea of religion like we now smile at little children. Smile at gravity like we now smile at those who thought the world was flat. Smile at simple morality like we now smile at apes. Marcus let out a faint chuckle, but it sounded more wistful than mocking. My visions allow me to see these alternative futures laid upon our own, and it's always quite distressing. Good and evil weren't always what they are now, nor will they be the same in 100 years, thus it seems folly to me, as a man for all ages, to chain myself to some moral rock of the century. We look back on the atrocities of earlier days and say, times were different then. But I desire to look from the future to the present, to see what we will one day consider primitive and backwards thinking, these outdated ideas we've carried past their lifetime. I see, you've got some interesting ideas, Marcus. I do try. He gave me an ambivalent shrug, causing tendrils of dark hair to fall back from his shoulders. Let's change the subject before they swallow us. Do you know how vampire physiology works? Ah yes, the most lurid of questions that everybody's simply dying to know. Marcus let out a gentle sigh. We can replicate most of human biology without too much effort, but it is not a subconscious affair like breathing was as mortal. Producing arousal usually requires concentration or mental attunement, the subject willing their blood to flow downwards. Blushing is also possible, in fact, but what kind of pathetically cutesy creature would choose to blush on purpose? It loses the entirety of its charm, so you'll almost never find a vampire so shamelessly pretentious. Though I suppose there are exceptions. Okay. What do you think of Heath? Heath! He's a lost boy if I have ever seen one. A circular block that can't fit in a square slot, and a star child who doesn't understand our world. Alas, self-loathing is just another form of narcissism, perhaps even the most severe form. Absorbed in self-pity, misery, your thoughts always focused on your own depression. That's why his use of drugs is constant, though most of them aren't narcotics of the bloodstream, for drugs come in many forms. Television, movies, video games, food, sleep, celebrities, music. Everything we use to escape. What's your relationship with Randall? Randall. I can't believe I just said Vandal. He is emerging from a cocoon, struggling to free himself. Some nights I don't know which holds more terrifying potential, Randall or his followers. Each one may be but a gentle lamb, full of kind intentions and innocent desires for safety, for freedom. A person is intelligent and wise, but people so easily become a pack of animals, a hive mind, feeding off of each other's fear and hatred for the enemy. That's all I can ever say. Your views on Charisse. I've always had an unusual fondness for the Red Queen. She possesses both the kindest and the cruelest heart of any vampire in Hollywood. Her protective desires clash with visions of a utopia. Though she longs to fix the broken and wounded, all she knows how to do is destroy. I will always admire the beauty of her vulnerable soul. Alright. I think that's all we have for today, yeah. I think that's all for now. Very well. We'll see each other again soon, I'm sure. Yeah, nothing changes there. Leaving Marcus's shop, I return to the dark streets. So... I mean, how Golgotha is right now with my rep, I'm not going to... I'll be fine getting the second ending. At the end. Okay, so I'm just... Let's just go. Let's just go. Eventually this stuff, like, slows down and there's not so much to talk about. I had my driver take me back to the beach, deciding to stop by Randall's place. Might as well try and get the full expedients. Randall's directions had been vague, but I followed the strong scent of Mavar to a house by the shore. The door was already unlocked, so I let myself in. Inside, a diverse blend of vampires filled the open space, chatting and laughing over drinks. I noticed Randall in one corner surrounded by a group, and I'll see you in the next one.